Okay, so recording in progress. Hello and hi everybody now officially. Welcome to our, I believe, sixth meetup, right, Artem?
Yep, yep,
It's
yep.
it's our sixth meetup with the initiative Agile for Ukraine. Yeah, today we have another two great speakers. We have Roland Flemm and Alexey Krivitsky. They have a very interesting topic, but before we give them the mic, we'd like to share some things about the initiatives for those who are new over here. So as everybody knows, we have currently a very difficult situation in Ukraine. We have war, and we created this initiative to start raising money to help Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people. Maybe Artem will start by telling how 24th of February turned out for him. Artem.
Yeah, I will try with my mobile internet, but at 5 a.m., 5:30, we woke up with my wife with nice sound in the sky, like, and we immediately understood what's going on. So we look at each other, say like, "Is it started?" Looks like yes. Our backpacks was already prepared with some documents, money, and jewelries. Maybe we have some, at least one ring. And we start packing children clothes and move as fast as we can to our cars. At 7 a.m. we were already on highway trying to get as west as possible, and afterwards we start reading the news, and it looks like that bombs and missiles are everywhere. So we were traveling 30 hours in total to get the safe place. Sasha, stop, please. Не издевайся. And yeah, that was our story, so to say. Long story short, after a week maybe of sitting and thinking what to do next, we came to conclusion that we want somehow to contribute not only with money, but also doing what we are used to do, what we like to do. And what we like to do is to connect people, connect professionals together, those who have something to share with others, their wisdom, their experience, their knowledge, their ideas, their inspiration also, such people as Roland, as Alexey, and those people who like to develop themselves continuously and learning from the best people around the globe. That's you, our guests, our friends. And by doing this, we hope that you will also get in all this value from the events. You will bring something back, for example, with donates to initiative and to fund we are working with. So I will bring microphone back to Andrei because my son is very proactive this evening. Sorry.
Yep. So we started cooperating with the United Foundation, which was formerly the initiative of Heroes of Maidan. This is a Ukrainian foundation which set up in Poland and started actively working in 2014 when there was the first invasion of Russia to Ukraine, when Russia annexed the Crimea and also started the war in Donbas region. So since 2014, they were working very actively, and they supported as volunteer battalions, but also they were supporting the armed forces of Ukraine. And when the things de-escalated over there, they had a couple of very good and I would say also great initiatives like Holidays Without a Dad or Christmas Without a Dad, and it was dedicated for children who lost their fathers in a battle. And they arrange education for them, they arrange holidays for them, so they were supporting those kids. Since the war started, the first shipment that went from Poland from this foundation to Ukraine was on 26, and since that there were more than 140 buses and 125 trucks, TRI, TIR, which drove to Ukraine over there. So this is a very quite a big and active foundation which cooperates with biggest Ukrainian funds like the foundation of Sergei Pratula and the foundation Come Back Alive, Повернись живим. Yeah. And one of the fastest way how the help can get to Ukraine is actually by donating to this foundation. So right now we are raising funds for three main directions. First one is humanitarian medical help. As for humanitarian help, it's an obvious thing, but medical help is divided in two directions. First direction is medical help, which goes directly to the bomb shelters and to those who are injured who are in local hospitals. But another direction is the actual medical kits that are being used by doctors and our warriors who are on the battlefield. The second direction is Kevlars and helmets. I see from names over here that we have mainly Ukrainians, so you know that Ukrainian army consists right now not only from armed forces but also the territory defense, and we need to supply them those stuff, Kevlars and helmets, because now we have more than 100,000 men and women in reserves who are waiting for that, and they are not equipped at all. And of course, the foundation is raising money for tactical equipment, starting with drones, ended up with thermal vision, night vision, even boots, gloves, all of that stuff. Yeah, so this is a well-trusted foundation. If my word means anything to you, I know the people who work there personally, and believe me, they're super effective and efficient into delivering help to Ukraine. About how to donate, we're gonna share the information in the chat as well, but you can donate via the Polish website where this foundation, United Foundation, is raising funds. And before we started cooperating with them, they were raising funds locally in Poland. And now you can also donate from PayPal. Okay, so I think I took too much of the time. Maybe now it's time to go to great stuff, and I'm passing the mic to Roland and Alexey, and thank you for your attention.
Yeah, let's rock, guys.
Alex, take it away. You're going to share the screen, aren't you?
Yes.
Because you've got the magic powers to open the eyes.
The eyes of
What is
people.
that? Will people will learn.
Yeah. So, hi guys. First of all, let me introduce us. That's me, Alexey Krivitsky, and today I'm speaking with.
Oh, that's me, Roland. Hi, how do you do, Roland Flemm?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Holland, and I'm helping Alexey, and we're thinking we're aligning our mental models on organizational design, and especially how organizational design keeps on growing or changing. And we would like to share a little bit more about our findings tonight. And it's a premiere, right? This is the first time that we are opening our minds to the people.
Right. So this is not a random slide deck that we just put up for this webinar. This is something we have been working on for how much, Roland?
2 months, 3 months?
Half a year, I want to say, but maybe
Really?
a bit less. But then we had to pause because of the war, and I really couldn't make my mind continuing. But basically, today
Actually, you're right.
is my first, so to say, public appearance in Zoom after the 24th
Show it. Come on.
February, right? So we would like to present to you something we've been working on for quite some time. We have no idea how much time it will take us, but we know we have a hard stop at 8:30 Kiev time, so we'll try not to go beyond that. If you guys have questions and stuff, let's use the chat in Zoom. And we can also use the Zoom function of raising your arm or hand if you have questions. But let's go and see how this works. We also plan some interactive part in about an hour from now. So just to make you guys think of what we have been speaking of. Let's see how this one goes. So what is that? We are Roland and Alexey, and we quite crazy, as you can see on the picture, enough to come up with another scaling framework or model.
No, we're not presenting a new scaling model, Alexey.
But it's not really a scaling model because there are a lot of them, and some of them have been even presented at this series of events. So we actually have been trying to help ourselves with this model and also our clients, because there are many different scaling frameworks exist, and my personal experience was that when clients or any company start to use any of the Agile framework, and yeah, you can put your favorite framework names here, they got stuck with it. They start implementing this framework, adapting it, and they think they done when this transformation or transition project is over. And after they've implemented it, they don't know what to do next. And I think this is not how continuous improvement should be working. Should be working, right? It should be functioning. We believe that organization should continuously improve and don't get stuck with something that works today but not be working later on. So we have created this model of models, this meta framework that allows people to navigate between different ways how to organize.
Yes, because that sounded like we rehearsed this, and we didn't. But what it is that we found out that when we're doing consultancy, that some managers or C-level people don't really know about the options, and they kind of fall in love with the model they've implemented, and then once they fall in love with it, they want to stick to it. And there's a lot of forces in the company that want to stick to the same format, to the same model as well. And we wanted to make this conversation with people easier, to just show images of, let's say, archetypes of organizational models that people can recognize, because we also understand when you're in it how difficult it is to understand what could be your next option to remove those problems that you're experiencing with your model. Because, hey, let's face it, every model is imperfect, also organizational modeling. So there are caveats, there are problems that will arise, and you want to have options on how can I reduce them. And of course, you can call your favorite consultancy company that will come in and try to present the next, I don't know what kind of well-known model, and present their slide decks and then tell you that it will work for you too. We believe more that you need to look at the context of your organizations and let people, with their understanding of where they are, then understand what the dynamics could be for making certain choices to move to a next better state of what we would call adaptivity.
Mm-hmm. And for people who are listening to us now in Zoom or will be watching this later in YouTube, what you will be taking away from this talk, right? We believe you'll be able to understand where your organization is in terms of journey to adaptivity or agility, if you will. And not only that, but then you, as a decision maker or an agile coach or as a consultant, you will be able to also see and strategize your next move on the game. You will be able to see, okay, now we're doing this, but maybe in next year or next 5 years we should be going this direction. Yeah, so this map should help you to navigate among different options you have, how to organize your product development, and also like see the Northern Star, something you really want to go to. And now we're sharing this with you guys in Miro. And before we start opening these boxes, yes, and everybody who would stay with us till the last minute of this talk will be able to see all the boxes open. So stay with us, right? But without going now into too many details, what you see, yeah, you basically see a two-dimensional matrix. You have some boxes. Each box represents a snapshot of an organization, which is very stereotypical, very stable, and you should be able to recognize some companies which you've seen fitting in these boxes. Also, you'll be able to see how to move from a box to a box, and we have two axes, horizontal X and vertical X, and we're going to describe you everything which is on the map step by step. So without not overloading you with the detail, we're gonna just go and open the A1 box. As you can see, the A1 box is in the pre-agile row, which means it's non-agile or pre-agile, which is a better term. And what we can see here, right? I will move in. What we see here, we see an organization that is very much non-agile. It's actually on the opposite side of our ideal state, which we're gonna disclose also later on, which means this organization is the opposite of agility, which is, I don't know what, fragility. But we have it on the map because they exist, and we would like to create a map where you can recognize basically any organization there, like a chemical table of elements, something like that. Like every situation needs to be here because they deserve to have a place. We call this place a task work. And what you can see here, yeah, you can see this yellow, greenish, and magentish box. These are groups of single-skilled people, right? Sometimes we call them silos in the Agile world, but these are basically groups of people who can do one type of thing, and they actually don't know, they're too far from the customer, they don't know actually projects or products or features. What they do, they take a task from somebody who knows a bit more than them, and they go and execute that task. So it's a task work mode. And of course, there are people who break work into tasks, give those tasks to people, and then go and integrate these tasks into working software or working product. We call these people PMs, for project managers. Of course, not to, like, if the company is 5-10 people, that can work without any other roles. But if it's a lot of people, typically to avoid mess and to avoid conflicts between different project managers, there are people in charge. Like in every department, there will be somebody who we call a resource owner. It can be a team lead or somebody else. There can be a better real name for this title. But basically, the goal of these people is to make sure that their employees have work and don't have a lot of conflicts between different tasks.
Yeah. So the PM the PM here is a let's call it a project manager. He will talk to a resource owner, being maybe a line manager or
Right.
Whatever. I need John to help me out because he knows about X, right?
Yeah. So we're not going to stay alone in this box. It's not. But as I said, it's a place to be, and also it's important for us to know how organizations evolve and go into next boxes. But what's also important, because before we move into the next box, another thing you should see on this picture is these squared boxes on the left. Dependency management, external decomposition and external integration, resource management. And later on, in different other models on this meta model, you will see these squared boxes. What they represent? They represent what we call added complexity. Something organization has to do on top of what clients are paying it for in order to actually manage itself. So let's start with external decomposition and external integration. What's that? Well, that's quite understood, right? If you have single skill groups, somebody needs to take a request or a feature from the client, break it down into yellow tasks, green tasks, etc., give it to people, and then integrate this together. So this red box, it's external to the teams, to these employees in every skill group, typically done by project manager. Also because there are interdependencies or blocking dependencies between different skills, that there's a box called dependency management, and we're gonna talk about it more in details later too. And another box, magenta color, is called resource management. Resource management, it's more like a static planning. If you are a project manager and you're responsible for a project, for some value to be delivered, you break it down into what needs to be done, and that what needs to be done you associate with some skills, and then you basically need to have a plan, which skills at which moments of time I will need. And you basically go and you book these resources. So this resource management is a lot what's happening in these kinds of organizations, because there are no teams yet, because there's no fixed constellations.
So that's
Miro, yeah.
that's happening up front. There's a lot of planning up front still. That's why we call it also pre-agile, because we're planning up front. We're fixing all the resources to make sure that we can meet certain deadlines.
Right.
Now these organizations will grow. Right? If you zoom a little bit out, we can grow to the right, or we can go to the bottom to grow. So let's first explore a little bit growing strategies to the right. Let's say that this company does good work. They deliver something that the customer wants, so there's traction. That means that they will need to be able to generate more output, right? More stuff they need to be able to produce.
Yes. And before I open the A2 box, just to keep you a little bit anxious, what's in there, I like to highlight the green arrow. So this model that we are presenting to you, it's not about the boxes per se, it's actually about the moves between the boxes. Because we actually want organizations to evolve and improve upon themselves. And basically, what we like this model to be useful for is to plan these next moves or steps in the game. And every move, every step between the box, it requires what we call a paradigm shift. So it's not just something simple, it's a reorganization of some sort. So as it says here in this yellow line, progressing between the boxes, both horizontal and vertical, requires realizing a paradigm shift and structural changes. So this is some kind of revolution needs to happen. And again, another minute before I open up the A2 box, you should understand this, that the organizations that are in the boxes, like these stereotypical ones, which we're describing, and we're going to describe more, these states are not random. They're quite stable. You should be able to see hundreds of such organizations, because something keeps them from changing. Something from the inside keeps them from going to A2 or from going to B1, or whatever that means.
And you know what that is? That is an element of the system itself. You know those boxes on the left, the big purple one and the smaller purple one and the red one, that's waste. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to do resource management, and because it's, you know, they need to survive and sell stuff, need to deliver things, they're going to be busy doing resource management all the time, instead of being able to step back and focus, go like, what's going wrong here? What is it that we could improve?
Yeah, so we believe this status or this form of being is quite sticky as any others, because, and in this case, because everybody is pretty busy in the organization trying to deal with this level of complexity, that no one is able to step back, zoom out, and say, how about we change this? Then we don't have to do resource management or dependency management. But because everybody's busy in this case, and extremely busy, and guess that we probably can guess that projects are not done on time, that the tasks, dependencies are being discovered on the go, then everything's under fire. People are constantly at stress, and when you're under stress, you cannot think of improving the system. Right? So
there's another problem, Alexey. One second before you go on. There's one other problem, and that is there's also external factors that prevent organizations to move. For instance, too much money. If there's too much money, you can keep on growing your inefficient setup because it doesn't matter. You just throw more money at it. But if there's creative tension, so if there's not enough money and you need to survive, then you're going to look for more drastic measures, right? You need a burning platform. You need a problem in most cases to really move from one box to another.
Right. But still, something might happen. Something might realize, okay, we have a very important project. We cannot do it the old way. We need to change something, for example. And then that might become a driver to go horizontal. So from A1 to A2. And we're going to realize with this move for what we call a multi-team work shift from X1 to X2, which means from A1 to A2, or from B1 to B2, or from C1 to C2, etc. It's the same shift. You start thinking about multi-team work, not individual work. Okay, let me open up the box. Bam. It looks a little bit messier, but actually it works better than the previous organization. So, Roland, what is that?
Well, what's been introduced is that we're trying to get a better understanding of the product that we're delivering. So in these companies, there's a customer first kind of feel, and they want to optimize for delivering to the customer, but they still have projects, but these projects get a more permanent state. So there's people working in what you call a temporary project group, and they're being assigned to work there. So it's a little bit easier because the people are not floating from task to task, but they're grouped onto well, a goal with a project, more clearly managed. And then there's shared resources that we need. For them, it's still complex because they need to be working on multiple projects, but at least we've reduced the problem from everybody working on multiple projects. Okay, so it's becoming more clear that some people are attached to a certain subject domain of the customer.
Yeah, you can probably say that resource management gets smaller comparing to the previous model. But on the other hand, because now you're looking people for longer than a day or a task on something that we call a project, you also, as a project manager, need to, I guess, do some better upfront planning to know who you need and who you don't need in a project. So it's questionable whether resource management is smaller or bigger comparing to the previous model. One extra box, though, that is being added here comparing to A1 is the green box. Green is for good. And it means centralized value management. So that's the first time this meta work appears, that people start thinking about the value. Okay, because you need to group projects around something. We call it value, and value is a little bit closer, and the projects are a little bit closer to customer than the tasks. Will we not agree?
Also, it's investment decisions. Okay, so
right.
It's a long-term strategic decision. What are we gonna invest in to attach our people more permanently to, because we think that's going to deliver more value for the customer. So it's centralized value management. We get an idea on what the company really needs to deliver for the customer, and we're willing to invest. But there's still budgeting going on. Yeah.
Right. Again, not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's a way to be. It's a very stable way to be for many organizations. That's why it deserves a place on the model.
But let me ask you a question, Alexey. Why is it not very adaptive, right? Because this is called Adaptivity Fit, right? So when we think for ourselves, this setup, let's imagine that we discover new market opportunities. How easy is it for this model to adapt, to start delivering on that new value?
Yeah, so we put these two models very much far away from the goal, and the goal is to go to the lowest right corner called NN. There's not too high adaptivity, because maybe even if you're lucky discovering some new value or some true value that the clients want, not the one that has been written in your requirement specifications. Because you've planned everything, because you had planned everything in advance to do the project planning, because you booked people, that's very unlikely that you'll be able to react or respond to that new value fast. So the strategy, like building new value, and the organization building old value, will be unfit, or will not be in fit to each other. That's why this whole model is called Adaptivity Fit. We are trying to map the strategy to the org design. And also another reason, Roland, why it's very much low at the adaptability scale, because basically people are not empowered enough to make decisions. And even if somebody has talked to a customer like this guy and realized something that the customer wants, well, he doesn't own the plan, he doesn't own the project plan and stuff, so he might just give up trying to convey this message to somebody who is in charge of the decisions, right?
Also, what happened is that there is multiple people working on like maybe a shared initiative, a project, but they're not really actively, continuously in let's say a fixed team, right? There's still shared resources taken out of that team. And then on the other hand, if there, like you say, if there's a new initiative, then how expensive will it be to stop a current project because of a new thing that might deliver more value, right? Those are hard decisions to take. That's not a change that people are just going to do.
And a stopped project for somebody in the company who manages projects is a failed project. If you stopped a project, never finishing, it's a failed project. So this company will be inclined to finish what has been already working on. There are lots of text on the right, which we're not reading, but we are just picking a few ideas from that. Guys, go ahead and read this stuff while we're talking. But one item I would like to highlight is lack of learning happens here for many reasons, and most of the reasons here because these are temporary groups and people don't have a long-term association with what they were working on. Zooming out a little bit. So we went from A1 to A2, and this was a horizontal move. And let's quickly look at the horizontal axis that we have. It's called value consolidation. We spent basically this half a year we've been working on this model, Roland. We've been mainly arguing with naming. But I think we came up with pretty good naming. At least I understand it. If I understand it, that should be good, right? So we call it value consolidation, which means if you're the right you go, the more to the right you go on the model, the more you closer to the real customer value and the more you understand the value. And you can be very low, you can be very leftish on the axis, which is narrow definition of customer value, of customer domain or customer value, and tasks are pretty granular, very lower, very narrow, right? A definition of value. And if you go on the right, you are getting a broader definition of a customer value. What is the broadest definition possible of a customer domain? Well, for example, in a bank,
one product.
There's only one product in an entire bank. Yeah, so there may be thousands of IT systems, but thinking very broadly, all of them just comprise one huge product covering the customer domain. But if you break it down into subsystems and features and projects and tasks, you're going leftwards in the model. So this is one key dimension that we think needs to be taken into account when people are planning the Agile transformation. Sadly, we think it's most often forgotten because there's another dimension. But we're going to explain it while looking at another box. So, time to open up a new box, Roland?
Yeah, go ahead. Can't wait. Come on.
I'm going to open up the box.
So now we're moving vertically. We're going down.
We're going down and we're realizing the A-B shift. So going from A row to B row, stable teams.
So instead of professionalizing on your matrix organization setup and optimizing resource management and planning, that was this one. We're going to look at, hey, but wait a minute, what if we really focus on creating stable teams?
Right.
And then focus on learning in those teams. That's a different approach, right?
So this column, this row, I'm actually confusing rows and columns all the time. Some people confuse left and right. I always confuse vertical and horizontal and columns and rows, so I have to think 5 minutes before I say the right word. So B is a row, okay? And it's called attempted agility. The A row called pre-agile, we discussed that. This row is called attempted agility, and there are 3 boxes which we're going to discuss with you hopefully today if we have time. And attempted because you are trying to get your hands on agility.
Well, it's in many cases it's a pilot, right? Because you want to you
Right.
don't believe this is a paradigm shift, so it's difficult. So now you're going to have these few stable teams that are going to try to deliver value by themselves, sticking together, and then there's this unchanged organization next to it that will just remain the way it was with the silos and having still the knowledge to do the stuff that is not in your pilot yet.
Right.
For instance,
So-
maybe the pilot team cannot deploy to production. Well, that will be done by the Unchanged Org.
Yeah, so we call this stable state of things feature work with complications. And they're very much different to A1 is that here you have teams. You have a notion of team. And because you have a notion of team, that's probably the first time ever in a company, you need to do something with teams. So project manager, question mark, scrum master, maybe exclamation mark, right? So maybe it's the time for somebody to start coaching the teams. The problem with these teams, though, they don't possess all skills necessary to do features or product work end to end. They have lots of dependencies to other skills that are still within the old organization.
Yeah. So
So
the
this-
search team was a good example, right? That we've seen a lot. The search team people. Yeah.
Yeah, so in all other boxes, you will likely see this gray box called Unchanged Org. And this is a reference to something like this or like this. It can be anything in the Unchanged box, which we're not discussing, but we are building something parallel to the Unchanged organization. And this is, so this a new part, like these new teams, these are these components, these structural components of agility, you can say. But in this case, they have very strong dependencies. For example, to analysts who are still in an analytical department because the team lead of analysts don't want his analysts to be in stable teams yet. And this will create dependency, and this can be any number of dependencies. It will be contextual. And of course, to manage these dependencies, you need to engage into wasteful dependency management. Who does it? Question mark. Can be managers, can be scrum masters, can be teams themselves.
Yes, the teams will be able to manage some of their dependencies because they can plan up front, because they've got more mandate that they will need somebody else from the Unchanged Org later on.
The good thing for you is that some boxes have been removed if you're going from A1 to a B1. The composition and external integration of tasks, it's gone. Who is decomposing tasks now? Teams can learn to do it. Right? It's no longer a job of a project manager. Resource management is gone now because, at least for these 2 teams, it's still there for the Unchanged Org. But for these new 2 teams, like in our example, you don't need to resource manage them because you just form them once and they stay forever. So you'll see a pattern as we progress on the model. Hopefully, if we are good enough at modeling the model, the picture should get simpler and simpler, easier and easier. And that's for a reason. It's not because we get lazy at the end with Roland. It's because we believe that going towards adaptivity, you are simplifying the organization. I mean, it's not a new idea, it's not our idea, but
So
I think that's how it is. You are simplifying stuff because you still need to do task decomposition, integration, but it's now taken by the teams. So some things get simpler because teams in-source these activities, and other things got simpler because they got eliminated, like resource management.
So there will be some stuff happening that is that from this pilot, probably this is going to be a pilot, people will see that these teams actually can be very adaptive at low cost, in comparison to the rest of the organization, where change is still very expensive. But what they will also see is that there will be a growing friction between those pilots and the Unchanged organization, because the teams will demand, hopefully, normally, will demand more mandate, will demand more capabilities, right? And that's again one of the dynamics I think we will see that could help us even when we want to move to a different box.
Right. There's a question in the chat from Alexey. Is there any difference between other skills and A/B skills? No, they're just different skills. It can be anything. It's really contextual. These other skills can be maybe some rare backend because you don't have enough people to know this component, and there's enough people to go to give to stable teams. It can be anything.
In the beginning, what I see happening a lot is that we have just a business who sets up for what they can do with their limited definition of done, all the business stuff in fixed teams as a pilot. What they cannot do, because that requires a huge organizational change, is to add IT teams to it, right? That's more difficult. So that's where you have the strong dependency on IT, where the purple or the pink circles will be all the things that IT needs to do. Some organizations, it's a little bit easier, then they can do a little bit of the technical parts themselves, but they, for instance, they cannot stage stuff to pre-prod or prod. Right. And that's why you need, again, the organization.
We're trying to speak very generic here, but just other skills. Why this status feature work with complication? Why is it sticky? Why organizations will tend to stay in this model without going right or down or backwards? In my experience, and I worked with an organization recently for about a year, where it's a large organization in Ukraine, where we had pilots, and they've been very successful, but there's still lots of other skills which we're not able to insource into our Scrum teams. Why? Can be many reasons for that, but likely those skills are either very rare, hard to acquire, that can be possible, or maybe these skills are owned by a very harsh resource skill owner who is not going to give his people away, to these agile hippies. So I guess when you're going from A1 to B1, you are trying to make the teams as fully cross-functional as possible, right? But there will be some limits to where you can go.
I want to add one. Why do they stay in this model? That's because the people in the Unchanged Org don't want to give up their job.
Also,
it's not just the manager; it's the people say, "Hey, man, that's my work, and if you do my work in that team, then I'm going to be losing my job." So that's not what I want. So the system will resist to having more of these pilots getting more and more mandate.
But that's another thing in the Unchanged Org. One thing we've just discussed are the skills. Another thing that we represent with this vertical columns is customer domain vertical. So these two teams, for example, they do search on the website and mobile, but all other customer request features, those things still go to the Unchanged organization, and that's why B1 is a very narrow definition of a customer domain, because not all customer domain is being already agilified. I think Artem, have you been raising your hand, or was it nervous tick?
I just want to make sure that we answered the clarification question from chat, and that the answer was enough. That what's the difference between skill A, skill B,
no difference,
and other skills?
Just skills. It can be anything.
Just skills.
Backend, front end, analytics, business skills. It can be anything Just it will depend on the organization. So let's move on, right? From this state, you can actually go rightwards, or you can go downwards. We will go downwards just for the sake of the storyline and just easier to explain what happens in C1. As you can probably imagine what's happening if you're going from B1 to C1.
Well, the pilot is successful, and we give
Pilot
them,
has been successful.
extremely.
Backend and front-end guys actually were able to talk to each other without calling a manager, right? And maybe they can be given a JavaScript guy and database guy and whatnot. So you are going along the vertical axis. And I think that's the time to explain what the vertical axis is. We call it capabilities consolidation. If the horizontal was value consolidation, level of shared customer domain, narrow or broad customer domain, from local thinking to broad value thinking, here you're speaking of capabilities or skills, right? Capability consolidation, level of shared production domain, how good you are as a unit to produce what you ought to produce. It can be shallow. You're barely scratching the surface of a front end with a team, but all the backend stuff still needs to be done by whoever. Shallow, or you can be deep. And what I actually like about this model, and I think this is what we got right, at least, that if you go down, you go deep. If you go right, you go broad. I think that makes me understand this model very nicely, but I've spent already half a year on that, so you guys tell us if it's understandable, comprehensible or not. The C1 belongs to the C row, right? It is, and we call it fluent agility. If there's somebody who is familiar with the Agile fluency model, that's not a coincidence. You can actually map a fluency model onto this model. Focus, deliver, optimize, etc. But we're not going down this rabbit hole. C1. Oh, Roland, look, it gets even simpler. Have we forgotten some boxes, or what happened to them?
No, they just disappeared along the way, didn't they?
Just got eliminated.
Oh man, you just got eliminated. Yeah.
You got lean.
So dependency management disappears because, hey, the teams, they are getting more and more end-to-end capable. Those teams in the pilot are really becoming, let's put it, biz DevOps teams. So they're getting end-to-end responsibility
So
for
these
their
are biz
products.
DevOps teams having all the skills necessary to do end-to-end work. Maybe they're different. Maybe this team doesn't need a yellow skill. That's why, I mean, it can be anything, but it's enough to do feature end-to-end. Right? It's feature work versus what we used to have, feature work with complications. So it's actually feature work without complications. You can just take a feature and you can just do it as a team, right? End to end.
These teams will be longer together, and they will be allowed to focus on learning. Right.
Right. And it's the first time we're introducing the term customer-centric teams, because now the team can do work end to end, which means they can go and talk to a customer and say, hey, okay, this is what you want. Come to our next demo and we're going to show it to you. We can just do it, right? Before, it was problematic to talk to the customer because you don't own all the ends. You need to talk to other people to make sure they are ready to do what you want them to do to build a feature. But here, you can talk to customer and do whatever customer wants you to do if that's in line with your strategy. And we say these teams are speaking customer language. They basically talk to customer in customer language.
But it's narrow, right?
But it's still narrow. These teams, for example, build, I don't know, give me an example. Maybe a product catalog. And they're responsible only for catalog to be a catalog, to not be empty. right? To always have something that you need to sell. Again, all other features, messaging, basket, payments, it's not concern of these two teams. So it's still on the very, very narrow level of customer domain definition. These teams probably have some kind of a team coach. We use Scrum Master just because we both are Scrum trainers, but it can be a team coach of some sort, and this is probably the same guy as here. And because of this guy, the teams have developed or improved, expanded their definition of done, what we know in Scrum, and that's why they grew these skills. And they also acquiring new skills. If they need to build something for the client, they know it's important because they've just talking to this client themselves. They saw a customer, a user struggling with something that they really want to build it. But they're lacking some knowledge of a component or technology. They probably can go and just learn this thing.
I'm just thinking out loud now here. Would we expect the product owner here already?
We don't have product owner as a thing on our model because, Roland, I don't think we forgot about it, but I think it's really hard to separate on the picture between the like real product owner or narrow fake product owner.
True.
And what's the product owner? To me, product owner is a very much this discussion, how you understand the value, and the broader you understand the value, the broader it will be managed by the product owner. So to me, it's like implied. But yeah, we have teams, we have Scrum Masters, we don't have product owners. We need to fix that for another version of the model. This is, by the way, the version 1.0.
Is it? Oh.
So, incremental improvements will come.
Absolutely.
Let's go into B2 and then we do a little interactivity.
Because B2 is interesting because that's right in the middle of everything.
B2, that's my favorite. That's where I spend most of my time with my clients. It's also in the middle. It's also ways to improve on it, but it's already quite good, but not quite good. So let's talk about it. So B2. Let's do a little bit of interactivity. Guys, could you please put in the chat, what are you expecting to see in the B2 box? Just
difficult question, maybe.
Out of your mind, like just type anything in the chat. Scrumbot. Empty. No, actually B3 will be kind of empty-ish, but B2 will be full of shit, I can tell you.
Full of what?
Full of shit.
It's full of stuff.
Full of Scrum bots, right?
Because our teams, they have not developed very far to be end-to-end capable. We are doing some kind of value consolidation, but we're still not there. PMO, that's a nice one.
So what this B2 is about, right? You are expanding. You have somewhat feature teams, but they're still not super deep. So there will be dependencies. You should expect dependencies. Oh, Spotify, thank you. But you're also expanding. So now you've also broken down this customer domain, and now you have teams for this, and this. So you have much more teams, but with dependencies and stuff, right? So I'm gonna open it up. All of you are right.
Some good answers, Alexey.
I've seen them in the chat. All of you are right. Safe like Spotify, kind of like that. So several things to be explained.
Well, there is on top there, if I may, just go broadly over the boxes. As you can see from the centralized value management is there because hey, we moved to the right. So there is this centralized idea about what true value is for the company. Yeah, like in the like there. Yeah. Then there's still dependency management because we don't have teams that can fix everything. right? So
Because we're still here.
yeah, we're still here. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the unchanged organization, because we didn't fix the unchanged organization. It's still there. In some models,
But
it's called,
it doesn't have the customer domains. All the customer domains are now part of this new world. What's in the Unchanged Org is at least the skills that we still haven't been able to pull into
yeah,
teams.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But there's a new box there too, the ping box, the portfolio management.
And also these greenish and bluish boxes.
Yeah, yeah. So those are, let's say that multiple groups of teams can get together to work on initiatives or on, let's call them value areas. There is some concept of what is value, and we need more than one capable team, a pretty capable team, to work in this value area. But they all work together. They share common goals, and that's good, because that means that within those boxes, there's more opportunities for collaboration instead of asynchronous dependencies. Now, these asynchronous dependencies still exist, and especially because the KPIs or the ideas that the organization has, will still be landing into maybe separate boxes of value areas where people will locally optimize for their value area. So in order to make sure that those different elements of the organization still communicate, we need something that is called PMO, or portfolio management.
In quotes.
In quotes, because it's actually something you would not like to have.
That's
if you
a
could do without,
portfolio management, right?
yeah, if you could do without that part, then it would be better for your flexibility, because now it means that the people in teams, when they want to take decisions, that they probably will have to go back up to the portfolio management where the area decisions are being made, and that's more of a not investment level but alignment level.
For example, if you would like to move this team, to work on this field because it's more important now and the blue one is less important, well, you'll be hard time doing that. Uh, Likely because the green box and the green box and the blue box, they are static structures in the organization. They are like departments now, with the corresponding hierarchy attached
Budget
to it.
allocation.
Budget allocation, roles allocation. I'd like to go up and read this text that we haven't yet discussed, Roland. So these types of organization, X2, we call it X2 because it's A2, B2, C2, this vertical, this column, right? These are organizations structured around fixed understanding of value. These three teams will be working on B2B solution, like forever, assuming B2B will exist forever, right? And if you want B2C, well, go and hire another bunch of teams who'll be working on that again indefinitely. So we call this static organizations. We didn't find a better term yet. Maybe it exists. Let us know if there's something like that. We like coming up with our own definitions, which might not be a good idea, Roland, but that's how we are. We call this static organizations. These are organizations. I will read. Organizational value-centric structure elements are predefined and kept fixed over time. So, like these boxes will be kept over time. Like these projects will be kept over time as long as the project exists. And importantly, when understanding of value changes, meaning company actually needs to be doing something else that it is currently doing, expensive reorganizational efforts are needed to refit the structure with updated strategy. Meaning these are organizations that have some kind of impediment for adaptivity. But they are better off than, I guess, A2 and B1 and A1. Answering to some of your comments in Zoom, yes, you are likely to see here some of the known scaling frameworks. Why? Why not here? Why not here? But you're likely to see them here. The answer is complexity. You have collected so much added complexity on the go. You need to manage dependencies. You need to manage dependencies across many teams because you're going left to right. So you're expanding, you're scaling your agile transformation effort. More teams, but not full stack teams. More dependencies. Also fixed values. So you need to do some portfolio management to keep these org structures in alignment. And you need to prioritize for the value. It will be staying actually in all boxes, but it's still an activity. So we believe these organizations are very much overloaded with internal complexity, and that's why if they exceed 50 people, 100 people, they're likely to ask some consultants to bring in some working frameworks, which in the end will result in more coordination events, roles, and artifacts. So you will see a lot of bureaucracy being stick on top of this.
Yeah, but in order to deliver value as a whole, they will improve because hey, every 3 months, people get together and have these big coordination events, right, where they make sure that they try to manage their dependencies for the near future.
Right.
Well, and it kind of works, but there is a limit to there's a ceiling to what you can grow to with, right? Because in this model to make it work, there are some how'd you call it? Some things you would rather get rid of. Some complexity is being introduced, new complexity layers, coordination layers, and you would like to get rid of that.
All right, I will stop screen sharing for the time being. We'd like to do a quick check with the people who are listening to us. I don't know, like 1 to 10 in the chat. If you're getting value, if you're not getting value, you probably should not stay in the Zoom. But if you're not getting value and you're in the Zoom, put 1 or 2. If you get a lot of value, just put higher marks from 1 till 10, just to engage you guys a little bit in the chat. We've been speaking for about an hour, a bit less, with a long introduction from Andrei and Artem. It was not planned and ruined the entire talk. No,
say that we're collecting money.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's important. Yes, also please donate. Ukraine likely will be needing donations for next months to come. It's not gonna be over sadly tomorrow, so please help us. It's a very important initiative, and I'm not trying to undermine the initiative. Sometimes my bad jokes seem like I am, but I'm not. So we have like 20 minutes to go, or maybe 25 minutes to go. We planned some interactivity, Roland, but we still have boxes closed.
I think we want to go for unboxing or unclosing all the boxes, and have questions in the chat is perfect, right? My suggestion is
hope you guys okay if we just continue talking, not engaging you in breakout rooms because you're probably watching from the phones or etc. But what we wanted to do, and I'll just explain, and you can start thinking about that question. What we wanted to do, we wanted to stop now because we explained most typical dysfunctional organizations we've seen, and because the majority of organizations are dysfunctional, like by definition, all orgs are dysfunctional, but majority are badly dysfunctional. I think still, we wanted to ask you. I close the window because it's noisy. We wanted to ask you to think about your organization, and like where would you see your organization fitting on the model? Is it A1, unlikely is it the B2, BB1? So
Maybe that's good to just drop it in the chat if you already see
yeah,
your
also
spot.
feel
Yeah.
free to put in the chat if you don't have to put your company name, but just the name of the box. It will be interesting to see, yeah, whether you are understanding the model.
May I take a leap, because actually it's quarter past. I think we still have 15 minutes or 18 minutes, right? Official time. Am I right?
Take a leap or a leak?
Leap. Leap to you know what it also is, why we were starting to make this model, because we think that many organizations, you know, then this consultant comes in and then probably they will give they have a slide deck of Spotify model, or they know how to do SAFe, so that's what they're going to sell. And actually some people say that SAFe was made for being you know, for consultants to have something to sell. I'm not sure about that, but some people say. Then I also have learned, you know, by being in the less group, that talking about less in an organization, one, you need to know about it. A lot of consultants don't know. I mean, it's like only 3% of the market, or 5. It's very small in comparison to the rest of the world for organizational design. And then secondly, less is extremely radical. If you just say to people, yo, you have to go do less, and management is optional and all that, the difficult things in less, that's just a bridge too far.
One backlog for the entire company, just do a multi-team meeting with 200 people.
If you want to talk to C-level people, they send you away. They say, it's impossible. Now, we hope that a model like this, a meta model like this, that doesn't specifically say, hey, this is safe for Spotify or whatever, but more like the dynamics and how you could move from A to B, which is always the same, you know, going horizontal and vertically is the same kind of decisions. You can already start seeing how you could slowly navigate from your position, maybe towards less complex organizations. I think that was the underlying goal of what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah,
right?
actually, I see now in the Miro, the entire board is called from mass to less. It's still there, but we are not going to mention frameworks because I guess also because of that, frameworks can be used in different boxes. You can use SAFe in B2, likely a place for it. Probably was designed to manage this complexity without removing the underlying causes of it. And you can use it also, try to use it here. Good luck to you with that, but maybe you can try. You can use...
You're not sharing your screen, right? If you say try to use it here, then we don't see it.
Am I not? I'm sorry, but I was meaning to go from... You can use it in B2, likely a place for SAFe or Spotify or McKinsey kind of frameworks, but you can also use them here or maybe here. Good luck using that in project or organization, but I guess you can apply some things. Same with less, you can probably use less here. It will probably very soon be aborted or help you to go into teams maybe, right? So these boxes are not, they don't have, and they don't need to have and cannot have one-to-one mapping to a known framework. Because frameworks are just tools and you can apply the tool everywhere. These boxes are some kind of, again, org designs that we've seen that are very stereotypical. And of course, we can go ballistic describing, for example, this B2 org design. We can draw like hundreds of teams, which is likely in this organization. We just don't want to overwhelm the Miro board, but you can extrapolate, right? B2 picture to having hundreds of teams and maybe dozens of fixed value areas that a typical bank would have. It still will be B2, no matter how many teams, because you are still in this paradigm of having fixed value areas, not having full stack teams, and having to do portfolio management and dependency. So no matter how many teams and people you have, you're still kind of in this box, for example. Okay, let's go and open up more boxes.
Yes, please. Shall we go down?
A3. We can open up pretty fast.
Okay.
We spent quite some time thinking what that can be. We failed. First of all, we're not experts in waterfall. And non-agile with Roland. Secondly, we believe it will be very hard for an organization to get to a higher or broader definition of value, still thinking projects and resource management. We just believe it will be just it will just explode with complexity and probably will go back to something it knows. But probably there are some organizations like A3, A4, and 5. We don't know what those are. AN will be the ultimate picture here, which we also don't have.
So the question is, if you have a
If
hunch,
you are-
an
yeah.
idea that you are in, or you know an organization that is A3, please let us know, because we'd be very interested in talking to you to fill up this box.
Meaning there is no teamwork as teams in Agile, but your understanding of value is very broad. Like everybody's talking to customer, the entire bank is the software product, like these kind of ideas. Again, if it's a 5-people team, I guess it's possible, Roland. Have like one project for all. That would be consolidation comparing to 3 projects for all. But
then you won't have this complex resource
yeah,
management thing.
we also mean at scale, right? Okay, B3. Shall we?
Sorry, guys. What about A3? Have you heard about Intercom? I believe that they are creating short-living teams from resource management. Quite a lot of people in organization. Everyone is speaking with customers. Have you heard about their case?
No.
Intercom.
That's interesting.
No?
Intercom?
Yeah. They take like 4 to 6 weeks sprints, choose 1 or 2 or 3 initiative, and collect people from different departments, different functions to work together on 2-3 goals for this period. At the end, they show results and dissolve the team. But very focused.
How is it not A2? Sounds like A2. Different naming. I don't know. Just I don't know the case, so it's hard to.
Yeah, because I've seen attempts to use it in one Ukrainian SaaS, but let's discuss it separately.
Yeah.
Alexey Shantonov says he can share an example. So
cool. Then
yeah, we will get back to you.
Yeah.
But
thanks. But the idea is that probably some levels exist, quite rare cases probably. But there might be examples of even A4, A5. We go to B3. Same thing. For me and Roland, we say, I mean, if you're like having hundreds of teams and dependencies among them, can you really work from one like backlog? Assume the entire software, entire product is your only product, and have one product owner for all these teams? I'm having hard times imagining that. And we believe because you have so much complexity here, you will have to be broken down into some kind of local optimizing boxes. So we think this move probably possible. We couldn't come up with a very good memory of a company that we both know. But hypothetically possible, okay? Then actually there are not too many boxes yet left to open. Is it C2, Roland?
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So what you are having here, if you're going from C1 to C2, you are going into this multi-team shift. So you are likely to see many teams like this formed. Okay? Not just 2 pilot teams, but all teams are basically feature teams, or most of them. If you're going from B2...
Что можно понять, когда он все время дергает этот экран?
Skажи, да? If we're going from B... People say I'm too fast at moving Miro, and it's hard to understand what are we discussing.
Yeah, but for further discussions, if you have any feedback, we would welcome if you could write it in the chat and mute yourself. Okay, thank you guys.
But I'm trying to basically navigate through the map. That's why we have a map. That's why I have to move my cursor. Otherwise, if I stay like this, will not be helpful. I'm sorry if I'm doing this too fast. Stuff like this. If you're going from B2 to C2, you are building end-to-end teams to this model, which is high five to you, right? Because you are removing dependencies and you're simplifying organization, and it's very much what will help you to become more adaptive.
So what do I see here? I see that we still have an unchanged organization with where non-product development functions are located.
So
There is
all the development skills have already been spread and shared across full stack
value
teams.
areas,
Yeah.
and feature teams.
Right.
There's centralized value management. We understand what the customer need is, and we can prioritize on it on strategic level, and we can do investment decisions, and we can let value areas grow or diminish as there is less demand in certain areas, or create new ones. But we still have the need to coordinate between these areas, right? That's again this portfolio management thing that we would rather get rid of, but we're still not there.
Mm-hmm. So the only difference to basically B1, B2 is that you have full stack teams. But the entire picture stays the same, but because now these teams can produce without dependencies, this picture is much simpler.
So it's not the same. There's no dependency management needed.
Right. What else do we have to say about this picture? Probably it's already quite a cool place to be for most organizations I've seen, and for most of my clients. I try to go at least to here with my work, right? I'm never happy if I'm stuck here, because this dependency management is a pain in Excel, right? And this is just not too much to have big impact for the customer, because only 2 teams are working on some features in a fast mode. So I'm trying to go at least to here. I have feature teams. They work in some fixed areas. You guys probably understand this already better than us. C3. And it's the first time we are going to open up a box which is not empty for the third row. And this is the shift we haven't discussed yet. It's the X2, row 2 to row 3 shift, which means entire company is a team. This shift was you're going from one team to multi-team work. You're understanding, okay, actually in Scrum, you can have multiple teams working on one backlog, on one product with one product owner. That's possible. You understood this and you simplified your organization quite a bit. Going a bit righter, I'm not sure if you can say righter, but going right, you are going even next step. You're saying, okay, the entire company is the team, no matter how many people are in.
So you're maximizing,
Yeah.
you're broadening your product vision to every team to the max.
Right. And this is the broadest product definition which we can think of, having specific examples of companies of mine and Roland. So this is, you're pretty high on the horizontal axis. Your product definition has been already broadened quite a bit, to the extent that the entire product, the entire company is working on one product. And all the developers, all the people with skills, they're part of one big team. But yes, for people to do daily work, they still grouped likely into Scrum-sized development teams, 5-9 people, because I mean, that's how people are comfortable working. But
the coordination is done. The coordination is done by the teams themselves.
Coordination is done by the team themselves, and there's lots of fluency in the model. If I go back now to C2, here you have these two areas, right? A greenish area and bluish area, and they were fixed as we discussed. They still might exist as a kind of a focus, midterm focus, or a container for domain knowledge, B2B knowledge versus B2C knowledge, but we put them in a dashed line around them because there is a fluidity in organization. Maybe in a month from now, somebody decides, okay, this area doesn't need too many teams, but this area needs to be broadened, right? So you have this fluency in the organization to change this artificial temporary boundaries between the teams, and you are uncovering what we call a fluid organization. Again, our terminology, probably a better one exists. Let us know. It's an organization designed for emergent value, or in other words, for value which can be discovered on the go. Fluid organizations, organizational value-centric structures are kept as broad as possible to contain dynamic nature of value. These are very complex ways of saying everybody is working, like everybody's focus is the entire product, and they can change dynamically. Such organizations are trying to sustain a constant fit to value and strategy. They possess highest fit for adaptivity. As I was showing, you can change very quickly the boundaries of these temporary structures, also because there is no hierarchy involved in these boxes. If in C2 box, this box, this one probably has manager, director, and another director who are trying to kind of make this
leadership team for
sub
each
organization
value
work.
area, yeah.
Let's call it leadership team. They of course help to make their box work, but they also make it hard to move between boxes, so they kind of create these artificial walls between the departments. Here you don't have that hierarchy. Your leadership team manages like everything
And
holistically, right?
and the non-development functions like finance or whatever have disappeared, right? They're also in the teams.
And for most of my clients, this is already like, wow, we are not able to go there in next 10 years, right? We call it holistic product work, and this is already quite a, I mean, if I zoom out and we look at the entire map, that's quite a big journey already towards super high adaptivity, right? So Roland, why haven't we limit the model with these 9 boxes? Why do we have this weird like n boxes that are still empty? What's the value in empty boxes?
It's perfection, right? We don't know what's going to be there. We haven't seen it yet, but it's like you said, it's like Mendeleev stable, or that's the way we call it. There were initially where not all boxes were filled. They only knew something was going to be there. Now we assume that there might be some evolution in any direction, and it might not stop there where we can only see it stopping now.
Right.
Because if we look, to the NN box, we can see there are still possibilities for growth. We only don't know in what way, this will be.
Yeah. It's like due to our personal limitations and constraints and experiences with the Roland in mind, we cannot define higher adaptivity fit than probably C3 organization, but it probably can exist. We just don't know yet.
So to remember again, adaptivity fit. Adaptivity means if you have high adaptivity, then you can easily implement organizational change. There is a new demand from a customer. at no cost or hardly any effort, you can start implementing or delivering on that new initiative. Right.
Yes, Artem has just shared the website for the model. The website is not yet updated with this mirror board.
But thanks for sharing, Artem.
Thanks for sharing, but please share in a week. We're gonna upload this mirror board and description to the website, and then it will be up to date. But there was a question about who is supposed to collect backlog in C3. Well, again, maybe there's one God product owner who does it. I've seen a company of 50, 60 people, CEO was doing that, but on a high level. But it becomes more of a collective effort, I think, if you're going to high adaptivity, because anybody can discover value, and it becomes more like a shared work. Although you can still have a defined product owner role.
It needs to be prioritized. I mean,
yeah,
somewhere.
We call this less like structures, because if you're familiar with large-scale Scrum, you understand what we mean by that. We're not implying less is the only way to get to here. It's just a keyword somebody who understands less can mentally relate to what we mean by this picture.
The principles and basic drivers in less kind of would, suggest you would go here into this direction.
We are running out of time, but we have one more box to open. Actually, surprisingly, we decided to put stuff into an box. We didn't put any picture because it's hard to describe what's happening in the organization. But what we think happened here, maybe Roland, you're better at explaining than me.
I'm not better at explaining.
No.
Well, if you think about what would happen ultimately if Scrum would evolve, or what would happen if your scaling mechanism would evolve and your maximum flexibility, the only way that we can come up with that we could see happening is that the boundaries between the organization and the delivery, let's say the people who you're delivering to, will disappear. Ultimately, it would be great to that you could be developing products through your customers. Basically, there will be not dualism means you have a choice, right? There's a distinction between people that make product and people that buy product. What if that would be one?
What if the product can be developing itself while being used?
While being used, yeah.
And we already have no code solutions that are trying to proximize to this, right? You don't have an engineer anymore. You have a customer who codes or who teaches the solution to do.
Yeah, without knowing, by clicking, the system will understand and then we'll try to adapt the offering.
So this is again our hypothesis, but in order to go here, you really need to stop separating production and consuming. You need to just become one.
Well, here what we're doing here is we're extending. We were still studying the boundaries of the organizational model, and now we're extending the boundaries to include the customers to be a part of that organizational system. Right, and that could even go further. I don't know where it could end. It's an interesting concept to.
With that, we will be. I think we will stop and leave you. We can talk about this for many hours, but we should not. Again, there is a website. It will be updated with this model. We're gonna describe it. This is the work of 2022 for us, for Roland and myself. So you will see us talking about this stuff, I guess, more.
Did you see the question in the chat? Somebody asked, is it like Linux?
Maybe it's like Linux.
I don't know how they're organized internally. Is that just people contributing, or?
I think that's more like Linux 10 years before, right? When you didn't have these distributions where if you wanted to use it, you just compile it and you're using it. And if it doesn't work, you go and fix it and then you recompile it. Maybe that's a good example. So we're looking for examples of we're looking for examples of A3, B3. Reach us. We will be happy to talk with you guys. And we're going to pass our microphone back to Andrei and Artem. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks a lot, Alex and Roland, for a very interesting presentation. Yep, so we're open to questions, and we already have a question about the examples of NN, but I believe Losha, you have already answered it, right? That you're looking for the examples. Or you maybe have some companies in mind right now that you could point to that operate this way.
I think we're out of time. We don't want to be between people, families, and dinners and people, right? So I guess that was our 90 minutes. Not enough time for a longer discussion. If someone has a short question, please shoot. Otherwise, it's good that you are already thinking about the model.
That's excellent.
That's what we wanted you guys to do with us.
Is FTAM an organization? Does anybody can, Alexey, can you explain a little bit what FTAM is, or is there a link that we can find?
What is FTAM, Alexey?
Team adoption map.
Feature team adoption map.
Feature team adoption map from Les. That looks like feature team adoption map. Thank you for that. But we know that. But feature team adoption map from Les, it looks at the development of one specific team. The way it perceives value, and the way it attracts skills. Here we're looking at the entire organization, not a single team. That's why you have this Unchanged Org, New Org, this spiral organization dynamic is here. But yeah, it's kind of on the same, say, classes of models.
It's the same dimensions, right?
Map and our Adaptivity Fit. Yes, thank you for noticing that.
Thank you, Roland, for this. What is
Please
this?
donate.
Is your iPhone?
No, it's just paper.
Just paper. Nice colors. Good choice. Thank you.
Donate.
Oh,
Donate.
Thank you so much, Andrei, for having us, Artem.
just imagine that it's yellow and blue.
Yes,
Donate.
it is.
Thank you guys for awesome presentation, for your energy, for your wisdom, for your contribution, commitment, professionalism, focus, courage, openness.
Oh my goodness.
Respect.
Shut up.
All the blessed values of Scrum, let it be with you guys.
Yeah. Okay.
High
Thank you very
five.
much for having us. We were happy to share our thoughts, working up in our ethics. It was good to be able to get some feedback from the people in the room.
Thank you. Slava Ukraine.
Героям слава. We hope to see you soon offline, guys. Here in Kyiv.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Alexey.